breathe in, and normally the way energy works in our body is it starts in the lower part of our body and runs up the backside, over the top of our head, down into our feet, and back into the ground. But what we're doing here with meditative breathing, you breathe in through your nose, coming up to the top of the head, and then as you exhale, it comes down and out through your mouth. Now, a trick to be able to do this is if you put your tongue to the top of your mouth, and when you breathe in, you expand your tongue. It'll keep the air from being able to be pulled through the mouth. So when you exhale, you relax the tongue, and it'll just come out the mouth. That way you don't have to make the adjustment. But what you're doing is visualize the energy coming up, or the breath, and then as you exhale, coming down around through the mouth. And now to help with the rest and relaxation portion of it, you can, as you're doing the meditative breath, visualize something you enjoy, something that makes you happy. It can be a loved one, it can be the smell of coffee in the morning, smell of flowers, a beautiful view that you saw once or you imagine on a regular basis. Just any of those sort of things to kind of allow yourself to move into that space. And then our fifth and final breath is Tai Chi breathing or rectal breathing. And what you're doing is you want to tighten up your lower back, your buttocks, your perineum, and you want to inhale, tighten all that up. Exhale, allowing it to release. And this is really good for working the muscles of the pelvic floor. Very good for women to do, also for men. And what you can do is you want to just keep doing that. Do an inhale and then exhale, allowing it to relax. This one is really kind of interesting because you can do this while you're driving down the road. You can do it while you're sitting in an office. You can do it anywhere you're at. And nobody's really going to notice unless you're like going extreme about it. You know, if you tighten up like that, you're going to possibly be noticed. But another way to do it is as you're inhaling, pump, rather than just doing an inhale all the way tight, exhale and release. You can also just sit there and squeeze, and this will work those muscles as well. There's a mixture of things you can do that it's a little more extreme and advanced with it. Just start with those 5 breaths and work from there, and if the situation comes up, maybe we'll do a more advanced class and we can get more into details about things. So now the actual working, you move like in the shape of a cross on a tender spot. One way is going to be more tender than another. And if you press in and tug in a certain direction, it'll cause a sensation that's going to be a little uncomfortable if it's a sore spot. But if you tug and pull on that sore spot, it's going to start to release things, which, without getting into too much detail about it, is what this chart here is on your first page. It'll show you different things that can be done to help yourself in specific muscle groups. A chart that is not in here, but I am working diligently to finish, is to tell you where these different muscles are. Most people aren't going to know this information. It's my job to know that, so I know what they are, but I haven't put that together yet. So just going across here, then your ears, and there's a chart in there for reflexology on ears as well, which is the same thing, just a little extra information. But you want to kind of rub, pull, tug on your ears. And you can rub on the inside. And all this is affecting different stuff. So after we do that, you want to make sure pulling on the ears is a big thing. There's little muscles that line the sides of our ears that a lot of times get tight on us. So if it's a little sensitive when you pull, or it feels real good, that's just a thing to pay attention to. That's another thing with this. It's not always uncomfortable. Sometimes it just feels really good, and don't neglect the parts that feel good. If I'm rubbing my ear and it just feels wonderful for whatever reason, go with it. Don't even worry about it. So then your little tab on the inside of your ear, you're going to want to try to release the pressure of the ear canal. So if you press in, or you can take and just put your fingers inside and just kind of pop them out, or fold your ears over. And all 3 of those will add a little pressure and then release the pressure. And then we're going to rub our hands to get this next. Ears. Section, gently blow out. Oh, gently blow out, sorry. I'm gonna follow my list, that way I'm not losing anything. So you wanna press on your nostrils, and then just gently blow out without opening your mouth, and it'll build a little pressure in your ears. You don't wanna blow real hard though, just a little bit. And then let that go. And then we will rub the hands together. And you wanna build up some heat in your hands. And then you're gonna just take and put your hands over your eyes, and just with your eyes, you're gonna look up, look right, look down, look left, and look up again. And that's gonna, by putting your hands over it, it'll help warm up the muscles there, but that's gonna help stretch out the eyes as you're looking around. And then you're gonna wanna repeat that one more time. So look up, look right, look down, look left, and go ahead and relax. Face you want to ask Grandma, is what he always said. Exactly. So always push up. And once again, you're going to find tender spots possibly as you're pushing on your face. And if you press into them on those tender spots, it'll be areas that you're going to start releasing things. There's charts in there for the teeth. There's the first chart with the face on it has some spots for the face. But all these are different things that you don't really need to know what you're releasing. If you find tender spots, go ahead and work those spots. This is important. So even coming along your gums, you can find spots on your gums. And then you want to take and rub on the inside of your teeth and the outside of your teeth with your tongue. And this helps stimulate the saliva glands. The saliva glands are really important for us to stimulate because it helps with our digestion. We have enzymes that are in our saliva that when we're chewing our food, the saliva actually induces those enzymes into the food, and it's the first initial digestive process of our body. So then when you swallow your food, it interacts with the stomach acid and the enzymes, and then it starts to break down our food. If we're not getting that, then our food doesn't break down properly and we don't pull the nutrients from the food that we need. So very important to get that as well. Let's see, pinch your SCMs together. So this is your SCM, sternocleidoid mastoid. If you take your hand and grab a hold of both of them, and just kind of squeeze a little bit to pull it forward. And then you're going to take your hands and go over top of your traps and pull forward on the traps. This is just to start loosening up our neck. And then we're going to rotate the neck. Who's next? Yes, rotate in as many directions as possible. Okay, so you want to drop your chin and rotate your head around. Look left and right, rotate back the other direction. Now a little more advanced thing that you can do, especially if your SCM is tight, you can take and pinch the skin and then move your head around. By pinching the skin, we're going to get into a little bit of an explanation here. There's something in our body called fascia. And fascia wraps through and around everything in our body. It's anchored into our bone, then wraps through and around everything, and then when it gets exacerbated, it clings to the underside of the skin. So when we have tense muscles, we also have tight fascia. So by pinching a hold of the skin, just the skin, you don't grab anything underneath, very superficial, and moving around, what you're doing is you're facilitating that fascia to be pulled loose from the skin. If you can get fascia to release, everything underneath of it starts to relax and release as well. So it's a very important practice, and this can be used anywhere on your body. So like earlier today, I was pinching on my arm and moving my wrist around. And when I move here, it's tight. So it's the same concept that I'm doing there. But by facilitating that movement, you're causing the muscles to tighten up, which is causing the fascia to tighten up, which then if it's clinging to your skin, it's causing it to pull loose from the skin because you're not allowing it to move because the skin's tightened. Another way you can approach it is even on your neck. This is a good example for a lot of people. Do you guys all know what a vertebrae looks like? So you got the 3 knuckles. You got your transverse, which are on the outside, and your dorsal, which is in the middle. But if you take and just rub on the outside of your neck, where those transverse processes are, it might be a little bit tender. It'll be on the side more so, but there'll be little spots. And if you find tender spots along those, what it is the fascia, when it starts pulling on the skin of the bone, we have more nerve endings in the skin of our bone than we do anywhere else in our body. And the fascia system is a hydraulic system. So there's a bunch of little microtubules that are either full or void of water. And by rubbing on it, we're causing that water to squish through these different filaments. And by doing that, we're allowing the matrix to change shape. Does that make sense to everybody? So if you find a tender spot, you don't even have to push really hard. And move your head around, right where the muscle belly meets the rest of it. This is Johnny Storm.
Hello.
He's fashionably late. He's going to actually add a little bit to the presentation at the end. He's a mentor of mine. So even grabbing a hold of the back of the muscle belly, moving your head around, but anywhere you find it's tight, if you grab a hold of it, move it around a little bit. If you can't move it around, don't worry about it. Pinch and hold. But the secret to it is if I pinch this far down, don't pinch further. Because as it starts to release, you want the body to register that it's releasing, and it's going to feel better if it releases. So that gives you a huge overview of fascia. But so then we're going to go to rotate the shoulders. So if you take your arm, ideally you want to aim your thumb down the whole time, but you want to come around and rotate. And get as much rotation as you can. And to add to that, when we were talking about fascia, you can grab a hold of the skin in your chest up by the shoulder, and that'll add to that a little bit. And with all of these, you're going to want to do both sides. We're not going to keep doing both sides all night because it would make for a longer night probably. Thank you for the added music. I think I heard somewhere it makes angels present or something, so that's good. Invite them in. And then you want to swing your arms. And especially as you're doing especially when you're doing the pinching and holding, you're going to start noticing a bunch of popping and creaking and stuff, and that's normal at any age. So just go with it, it's not bad. So across the shoulders, rub the elbows. So you want to take in your elbow, push onto the skin, and you're going to move it around a little bit. You want to go both directions. Rotate elbows. So you're going to take and rotate your arm around. So you're going to be popping around. Rotate your wrist. So for that, you can just go like this, or dealing with fascia again. You take and put your thumb on the inside of your hand, grab a hold of your wrist, pull down on the skin of the wrist, and then rotate as extreme as you can with your wrist. And you're going to find areas that are tighter and areas that aren't as tight, and that's pulling that fascia. You want to go both directions. Then you want to open your hand nice and wide. And that'll change the way it works. The muscles that primarily, there's muscles in our hands as well, but there's muscles in the forearms that affect the hand as well and our finger movement. So by doing the hand open and the hand closed, you're actually affecting it slightly differently. And then you want to try to wave side to side, and all that's going to help to start loosening that up for you. And once again, do both sides when you're doing your routine. Then you want to bend your fingers over. So we're going to take and bend like this. Once again, going to your body's limits. Some people are more flexible, so by opening up our fingers and toes, we're actually permitting this energy flow to actually run easier through our bodies. Then you want to take and bend your finger over. So just as far as your fingers are willing to go. That's a good thing. You're doing fine. You're not hurting yourself. There you go. And then you want to go the opposite way too. Now with this one, I'm gonna come around and show you. You wanna lock your fingers in like this, but you wanna support your finger below the bottom knuckle, so that you're not putting pressure on that knuckle too much. Does that make sense? I would use the index test, which is your, I always get these mixed up, I believe it's your thymus gland. Thyroid's in the neck, thymus is in the chest. And if your ribs are a little bit out of place in this area, it can actually impact your health. And it's because it's not allowing the thymus to be able to produce what it needs to produce. And by thumping yourself, it actually helps to slide everything back into place. But you can also work down your chest and across your chest, and this helps break up any congestion that you have in your chest. But if you're experiencing
Probably
pain,
stimulates your metabolism a little bit too.
what it,
I mean, that's why Tarzan used to go like that. I mean, could be.
So then also you want to take and rub along your rib cage. Anything that's tender in there, you can go ahead and, if it's tender, go lighter, like he was kind of pointing out earlier. If your finger's tender, as an example, don't go as far. Just start to ease into it. As you start easing into it and do this on a regular basis, it should start to help open things up. But rubbing all the way down your sternum between your ribs is really good. Anywhere in your rib cage, if you come over to the side or anything like that. And if it's tender, ease up a little bit because of what we were talking about moving just water through your system. You can just go lighter on it and work it a little bit, and it should start to ease up.
Sometimes I like it when it hurts good, though.
Some people have that problem. So then also along your rib cage, you're going to want to tuck in under your ribs if you can, or just glide your fingers along the rib cage. And this will help to start opening up your diaphragm. And there's chart in there as well, dealing with the ribs and all the different points on the front of the body. And then you want to take and press in and work your way clockwise around your abdomen. Our digestive system runs up and around the large intestine, so you're actually running everything the way it's supposed to go. And then once again, if you find little tender spots, you can take and just press and do a little bit of rubbing, and that'll help to start releasing things. As you're doing this, you're not just going through a routine. As you're finding things that are sensitive, spend a little time to give them a little attention. And that'll help to start getting things to work better throughout your body.
The one thing is, I kept forgetting.
And then your thumbs, you want to take and come down with your thumb. Yep. And then we're going to come back the other direction. So you're going to come around the back side of your hand, and then pull your thumb in this direction. There you go. And this is just to help stretch everything out. I would take, and when you come around, grab them like this, and it's easier. So there's a spot here on your hips that you'll find that on most people is a little bit sensitive. And by rubbing that, you're actually loosening your glutes, your piriformis, and your
Low back.
pelvis.
Yeah, your QL too.
Oh, does it affect the QL?
Oh yeah, there's a big.
So both spots on, or both sides of your body, you'll find something a little bit tender like that. But if you find it anywhere on your body, like I said, just kind of rub on it a little bit.
Okay.
And then you want to take and grab a hold of your hips, and as if you're inside of like a 5-gallon drum, you want to rotate your hips around, and back the other way.
What is that? Let's do the time warp again.
And then we're going to come down, and you want to put your abdomen on your, if you're able to. If you're not able to, once again, you work within your body. But you want to put your abdomen to your quads, so the top of your legs. And then you're going to start to slowly, you're going to lock in and slowly lift your butt up. And that's going to help you to start stretching things out, but you want to keep your abdomen to the legs.
Oh, that was nice.
And if you're able to, good. If you're not, that's good too. Work with your body.
Yeah, and if you feel dizzy, definitely sit down. Yeah, or something.
Oh yeah. If you're feeling dizzy, by all means sit down. Like I said, we don't need nobody to get hurt. So.
Right.
And then adductors are your muscles here. And then stretch a little bit. And that'll help to open up the adductors a little. Then rotate your knees. So you want to take, you go one direction with your knees, and then back the other direction. And then open up. And you can go back the other direction with that as well. So you can take and rotate your ankle around. You can press down on your toes, or leave your toes flat and do it. It'll stretch it a little bit differently. And then the same thing we were doing with our hands, we can also do with our feet. So one thing we can do is the pulling on the skin and then rotating around. You might know a little bit about this one. And then back the other way, and then you want to go forward, backwards, back side to side. And then also with the toes, the same thing you were doing with your fingers, you can do with your toes. For me personally, I think it feels wonderful to do it with your feet. And then after you stretch everything out with your feet, tapping the bottom of your feet will help to start stimulating as well. Your feet affect your entire body. So the more attention that you can actually give to your feet, it's going to affect things all over. Anything structurally going on in your feet will affect things structurally in the rest of your body.
Yeah, I've found through the years that if your feet are sore, we know you're for a good day.
Right? Well, something also to keep in mind just on a regular basis is if you visualize your hand as your foot, let's say that your foot's hurting here, if you come into your hand, pinch into the skin or just rubbing on it in that same area as if it's your foot, they reflect each other. So you can actually help your foot by rubbing your hand. What you're going to do is you start by tapping on your back, working your way down your buttocks, the outside of your legs, and then coming to the inside of your legs, coming up. We have more lymph nodes in our groin than we do in the rest of our legs, so you want to spend a little bit of extra time here. For men, this is more important. For women, it's more important to work up in the armpit area, just because the male body has more lymph nodes in the groin, the female body has more in the armpit area. And then you'll want to also do, starting on your chest, working down your arms, go back up, spend a little time on your triceps. And then you want to swing your body